the checklist for the site plan submittal. The review of the project is subject to all the requirements of the Land Subdivision and Development Code, and the Planning Commission has the authority to deny an application in the event an application conflicts with any of the outlined provisions. Compliance with the Land Subdivision Development Code requires adequacy of public facilities and services. The developer outlines the improvements for water, sewer, stormwater, and transportation system improvements. The transportation system improvements are outlined in the traffic impact study provided to the city, which is advantageous to have at this point, although it is not required for this application. In the review of the traffic impact study, improvements will be required to be designed and approved by the city and RDOT as needed for improvements at both entrances, including off-street improvements for each entrance located at Hobnob Road and Bradley Cove Road, as well as improvements to maintain a level of service rating of a C or better for both off-ramps from I-40 adjoining Highway 331 Bradley Cove Road. Large-scale development does require an applicant to propose green spaces and landscaping. No specific requirements for landscaping are listed within the zoning code. To help offset the large expanse of hard surface being proposed within the parking lot, containing over 1,500 parking spaces, staff recommends breaking up the vast expanse of pavement by including a landscaping island with at least one shade tree for every row of parking exceeding 15 spaces side to side. This may cause a reduction in parking spaces. However, as noted in the application, it is highly unlikely that all of the spaces shown will ever be used. As a result, staff believes that a reduction of approximately 50 parking spaces would be acceptable, and that would still retain more than 1,500 parking spaces. Sidewalks per 321 are required for new commercial structures. Per the Russellville Trails map, there is a 10-foot trail proposed along Hobnob Road, across I-40 at 331, and along Bradley Cove Road. The applicant is proposing to build 10-foot trails along the entire frontage of the property. The applicant has also submitted calculations for both the hotel and for the gaming area showing that they are providing 1,572 spaces with 7 van and 35 regular ADA spaces included in the count. The parking requirements for the primary building are met. If the annex is built and able to open prior to the primary building, parking will need to be provided to meet the requirements for places of amusement or recreation prior to a certificate of occupancy being issued for the annex. Any new signs will need to meet the provisions of Article 5. All signage added on the interstate will direct motorists to exit 84 East Main Street at Highway 331 Bradley Cove Road. If signage directs motorists to exit 83 Weir Road, improvements may be required at the off-ramps of Weir Road in addition to the improvements required for the off-ramps at 331 Bradley Cove Road. The applicant has stated that as soon as possible they plan on annexing the property into the city. The city recommends following the procedure outlined in Arkansas Annotated Code 1440-609. Generally, applications for large-scale development projects typically include very limited information and just the items outlined in the Land Subdivision and Development Code. Those items include name and type of development, along with the current zoning classification, name and address of owner with the title report showing ownership, survey of the property showing street names and classification, rights-of-way and center lines, and any and all easements. Proposed building location, sidewalks, curbs, drives, parking and striping, exterior lighting and exterior speaker location and direction, proposed curb cuts for development and adjacent curb cuts, identifying all adjoining property by activity and business, utility proposal, drainage improvements and drainage runoff quantities, green spaces, and landscaping. A letter of preliminary approval from the city engineer for the proposed stormwater management plan, and a letter from City Corporation stating the status of water and sewer service. As indicated, the applicant has submitted all of those items. Applications generally do not include specific calculations for water or sewer lines, traffic impact studies, or building plans. Although, as noted, some of those items are advantageous to have, like the traffic impact study, they are not required by code, at the planning application phase of a project. Applications at this point are just trying to obtain development rights, meaning that a jurisdiction will allow the application to move into the next phase of development. Code requirements, as commented by Public Works Engineering, City Corporation, and the Fire Department, all indicate that no deviation from the code are requested and that those requirements shall be addressed during the design phase of the project. Additionally, the applicant has submitted a letter indicating that they will comply with the conditions recommended by staff if the commission approves the application with those conditions. Compliance with the regulations has been determined. Therefore, a planning commission may not disregard the regulations set forth in the Land Subdivision and Development Code and substitute its own discretion in lieu of fixed standards applying to all large-scale developments. No discretionary power to disapprove exists. Thus, it is staff's recommendation to approve the large-scale development to allow the construction of the main facility and casino annex structure with the following conditions outlined by stage of development. Prior to building permit issuance, submit and finalize a petitioner-requested annexation. Determine a feasible solution regarding all transportation system impacts identified with the traffic impact study and obtain approval for all improvements required by the facility from both the city and RDOT for those. And all public improvements shall be bonded at 150%. And submit revised site plans showing landscaping with reduction to parking shown. And obtain an updated license to operate a casino annex temporary facility from the Racing Commission and provide the update to the city, or remove the casino annex building. No revisions will be required to the large-scale development approval if the annex is removed. Now, prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy, submit and finalize a final plat application including dedication of right-of-way. Improvements identified and approved by the city and RDOT shall be completed, and bond regarding potential improvements at 150% of the cost for improvements identified in the traffic impact study as needing re-evaluated after the certificate of occupancy is issued. Then within 6 months of certificate of occupancy, submit a new traffic impact study re-evaluating the off-ramps at both Highway 124 Weir Road and Highway 331 Bradley Cove Road, confirming distribution assumptions within the original traffic impact study. And if no improvements warranted by the new traffic impact study, the bond for potential improvements will be released. Then, within 1 year of certificate of occupancy, submit construction plans for any intersection improvements identified by the re-evaluation traffic impact study as being warranted for improvements. This is all as a result of the findings that the applicant demonstrates compliance with the regulations within Article 2.10 of the Russellville Zoning Code, and that the applicant demonstrates compliance with the regulations of the Land Subdivision and Development Code. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have a couple of folks that wanted to speak.
Chair, just a moment. If I could remind the folks on the Planning Commission, when you're speaking, to use the microphone so that people who are watching at home can hear.
Okay.
I've had some folks contact me saying they can't hear. They can hear Sarah. They can't hear when we're talking up here. So if everyone just pressed the button so people at home could hear, that'd be great.
Everybody got that? Thank you, sir. All right. We do have some folks that wanted to speak in regard to this, to the,
Wendell,
yes.
can we let the applicant respond and then
Oh, sure.
allow public comment?
Sure, yeah. Where is the applicant present? Yeah, go ahead, Morgan. State your name for the record, please, sir.
My name is Morgan Barrett with Barrett & Associates. We're presenting this for Gulfside as we did last month. I won't go through everything I did last month, but I'd like to clarify a few things. The traffic study was prepared and submitted to the city and the highway department. We have been in communication with the highway department, specifically the director of planning. I think he's been in contact with the staff. also, and they can, if they choose to, can tell you their conversations. But conversations with me, with the highway department, has been, they reviewed the study. When it gets to the permitting phase, there's more information that they will want to look at, and that they're going to work with us throughout the process and come up with the solutions. But they don't have any additional comments at this time. But they did look at the numbers and are in receipt of the study. I know there's a lot of concerns, and there's a lot of people who are anti-casino. I'm one of them. And some of you may find it funny that I'm here representing it, but there's a lot of conditions for me being here. And one of them was to make sure it was done right. And I'm here because I do want it done right if it's going to be here. The planning part of it, at least at this point, is purely a technical review. The land use part, whether it's a casino or not a casino, that was decided some time ago. The property was zoned, as Sarah said, for a casino. This process is just the site review, the technical aspects of it, the traffic, the drainage, the water, the sewer. We've complied with all that. We've complied with the regulations, and we've even gone above and beyond what's required for submittal at this point. I think the staff has done a really good job in reviewing, and the recommendations they made, Gulfside has stipulated to those recommendations, and it's going to be done. The site plan submitted has to be built. If it's not built, we have to come back to you. If there's changes other than what Sarah stated, we have to come back. The issue, and I'll let, Casey Castleberry and Jonathan Terrell are here. Casey's the counsel for Gulfside. Jonathan is with Gulfside. I'll let him address any issues related to the license. A copy of the license was submitted with the application. They do have a valid license to operate a casino in Pope County from the state of Arkansas. But the land use, going back to the land use was decided, whenever it was rezoned. When was that?
I don't have the date.
Okay. Okay. So tonight, we're here, we presented the site plan. If it changes, or if there's any significant changes outside of recommendations of staff, we have to come back to y'all. There's been some discussions about the Racing Commission and pending lawsuits. Well, approval tonight doesn't change any of that. If something happens, they can't build it. I mean, the approval of this body isn't the final word. The final word rests with the state. So tonight, we're just asking you to look at the large-scale development ordinance that requires the Planning Commission to review it and approve it if it meets all the requirements. Your staff report says it meets all the requirements. I went back and looked at the ordinance, and it says that the Planning Commission shall review at the next regularly scheduled meeting and shall approve it if it meets all the requirements. And I think we've done that. That language is not permissive, it's mandatory. So I'm asking y'all tonight to take that into consideration and asking you to approve it. I'd be happy to address any questions or any concerns. If you have concerns, we're here to talk about it. Everyone with Gulfside and myself are willing to discuss. So if you have any comments, even preferences, we're willing to discuss it. And so if you have any concerns, or if you anticipate
Morgan, I do
voting no.
have a question that's came to me personally over the last 30 days has been a big one has been the traffic study. Would you mind just skimming it and just letting people know what was done as far as that traffic study? Can you explain how that went about?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and tell you I won't go into all the details about it, but I wanted to bring in a second set of eyes related to the traffic study instead of us doing it completely in-house. I brought in CBB. They're out of Missouri. They specialize in traffic. That's all they do. That's all that at least the people I dealt with at CBB. They have a complete traffic division, and that's all they do. They did, in my 25 years in Russellville, they did the most detailed traffic study for a development, even more so than what Walmart did. I reviewed the Walmart traffic study. This one is extremely much more detailed than the Supercenter study. But they did existing traffic counts of the existing traffic. We looked at other data sources related to highway department counts. We looked at multiple sources for traffic generation. We talked to Gulfside about their other properties and the anticipated volumes that they expect in and out. And we gathered all the data we could and modeled the traffic. We looked at the driveways, we looked at all the roadways, we looked at the existing level of service of intersections, and then we modeled it with the traffic that would be generated by the casino. Kind of the same process if it was a subdivision, if it was a restaurant. It's going to introduce more traffic in the area. No matter what it is, it's introducing more traffic. So we went through that process and recalculated the level of service at existing intersections based on the impacted traffic. And then at that point, we looked at improvements. And then we modeled the improvements with the added traffic. And we made several changes to the improvements to driveway locations, and pushing the driveway to the east got it out of the congested area that many of y'all are familiar with out there in Bradley Cove. That's why the driveway is further to the east. One of the things, one of the conversations I had with Gulfside is, I don't want to draw a site plan and tell the traffic engineer to make it work. I want to do the analysis, and we're going to let the analysis dictate the site plan and the access points. And that was the approach we took. Moving it further to the east got it out of a lot of the conflicting turning movements and let the traffic free flow into the site. That driveway location is not what they wanted, not at all. They wanted one right there. Obviously, as you come across the interstate, they wanted a driveway right there, and it was not going to work. And so that's why we went up way to the east. So after that whole process, we submitted that to the city engineer and the highway department, and had multiple conversations with them, addressed some of their concerns, and finalized the traffic study. And that's what you have in front of you. And it's a large facility. A casino operates a little differently. Even though it's really big, it doesn't have as much peak hour generation as say a football game or even a restaurant as far as percentage of traffic. There's a PM peak that is the highest. There's not really much of an AM peak. It's a lot of coming and going throughout the day. As far as events that might take place, we did model that, and it really didn't have much of an impact, because the way the events work at the casino, my understanding is a lot of people just don't leave all at once. They hang out, or if they're staying at the hotel, they don't even leave the property. So as far as any type of events associated with their meeting areas, it didn't have much of an impact on the overall traffic study.
All right, thank you, sir.
You got it?
Anybody else have any questions for Morgan?
Did you consider exit 83 instead of exit 84? That's what constituents have called and asked me during the week, since that's a highly populated area going to homes off of exit 84. And if it came in through 83 off of Weir, it's not as heavily populated that way. So I was asked that question.
Yes, ma'am. And one of the things we did is we are building a pretty prominent entrance on Hobnob to encourage traffic to go that direction. We did some directional distribution assumptions, trying to guess which way the traffic may go. We have laid out the site plan to where they can go that way easily. However, the most direct access, and here's something we did, it seems really simple, but we plugged in the address in Google Maps to see how it was routed, and that helped with our directional distribution assumptions. And obviously, everything took it to exit 84. But we will, and I think traffic will find its way to 83 if there is congestion at certain times. They'll go out that way. But we've laid out the site plan to allow traffic to be easily able to go out Hobnob and hit that Weir Road interchange. And that's one of the good things about this site, is that option is there, as opposed to it being like on Weir Road. You know, everyone's going to go to Weir Road. So this site does have access directly to Hobnob, directly to the Weir Road interchange.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Barrett?
Yeah, and I'd like to, if you have any questions or if you're anticipating voting no, I'd like an opportunity to address that, or if you still are in the opinion of voting against it, I'd like to know the reason. When you vote no, if you wouldn't mind stating it. But I'll be happy to answer any questions, either now or later on.
Step up to the microphone if you would, sir. State your name for the record if you would, Jim.
My name is Jim Knight, and you guys probably know that I'm president of the anti-casino group. And the only question I have tonight is I heard a reference that this should not be considered as a casino issue, and Morgan, I agree with that. And I think the folks that are here tonight, I would hope are here because they want to see their neighborhoods protected, you know, the traffic and ingress and egress. And I would also say that the multiple lawsuits that are going on right now is a point proven that, you know, the casino effort has come under some scrutiny to do what they say they're going to do. And there has been some doubt cast over that. And I just say here tonight that I'm not here to question, this is not a casino issue tonight. You know, I'm here because I own land back there. And I'm concerned that I have a lot of confidence in Morgan, and I think he'll do the very best job he can to design this. So that's not why I'm here. And I just wanted to clear that up, Morgan. If you think that there's yeah, you know, I just wanted to make sure that everybody in this room know that there's not a backdoor. We wouldn't do that. We have made a commitment to play by the rules, you know, and we're going to come on with the frontal assault. Once again, I would say by all the lawsuits, that would draw one's speculation to believe that maybe they don't play by the rules all the time. And so we're having to get a judge somewhere to sort that out. But we're here tonight, I'm here tonight just as a concerned property owner back there. So I just wanted to make that point clear.
The lawsuits, I'm sure will be, I'm sure that will be addressed.
Sure.
I'm sure they'll be able to explain some of that too tonight. So, thank you, Jim. All right.
To clarify, Sarah, the building proposed is zoned appropriately, correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
The area they're proposing to build in is correctly zoned for this property.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I do not have a date on when the zoning was done, but it was established by ordinance 2343, and I can look that up.
I can't see who's talking, who's speaking. Would you mind stepping to the microphone and state your name for the record, please? Thank you.
My name is Sharon Keener. Some of y'all I know, some of you I don't. I'm not one that normally speaks out about things, but I cannot understand the city addressing this at this point before the Supreme Court has made a final ruling. I also, even though I do not live in the city limits at this time, I do not understand the city even anticipating spending any revenue whatsoever to make any improvements or anything else before the Supreme Court has made a decision. I'm very nervous about this because I normally don't speak in front of people. But we need to do what is best for this community. We need to put special interests to the side. We've got buildings here that look like Havana, little Havana over in Yell County. They're empty. Why are they empty? Because we've got too much special interest in this community. We need to think about the generations to come. We need the casino. I know it's against, you can't preach morality to people. You can pray for them, but you can't stop it. They're going to gamble if they're going to gamble. That's my problem with the churches being involved. There's a reason that there is a separation between church and government. And I know in this world we live in today, people do not always do the right thing. If it's going to benefit them as an individual, it doesn't matter that it hurts the majority at large. They're going to do it. And I'm just hoping that this community can come together, and not just Russellville, this whole county needs to come together. These outlying areas are going to dry up, and people are going to move away. Our kids are going to move away, just like mine did. One of mine did. Because they can't make a living here. And the reason they can't is because we don't join forces as one to do what is best for this community. And I hate and I hope that y'all can vote your conscience tonight and not approve any of this until a final decision has been made. I would hate for any more revenue to be spent on something that might not even come about. It may be Legends, whom I personally believe is the best for this community. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of people that have signed up to speak. Roger Fryer, are you? We're going to try to hold the comments to 3 minutes or less, please.
My name's Roger Fryer. I live out in Cove Landing. My wife and I have lived there about 20 years. And I'm only going to talk about a couple of things. I'm going to try to keep it to 3 minutes. One is the traffic impact study, and the other is the Aegis Letter. One of the first things I saw on page 4 of the traffic impact study, they go into the traffic mix, what's contributing to the numbers. And if you look on that page, you'll see that they never talk about residential traffic. Well, there's 4 subdivisions, Cove Landing on the far end, Stonegate on the other, with Richland Hills and Cliff and Stream in between. There's over 1,000 homes in those maybe closer to 2,000. I didn't count all of them, but there's a lot. I've watched some of those get built in my 20 years there, and it's pretty amazing how that intersection there at exit 84, how busy it has gotten during that time. You know, I look out across the room and I see some people from Cove Landing and others. I'm glad they're here. I'm glad that they've taken an interest in what's going on. But that failure to identify these people, I think, is an error, because if you just do a quick math, you'd realize that there's probably at least 1 or 2 drivers per every household. That represents 2,000 or 3,000 trips at least, and that's at least 20-30% of that total amount that I think has been modeled for going through there, or the traffic counts. These are people going to school, going to work, and going into town for business and coming back. And we know if you live out there, it can get really busy and dangerous. I thought it was interesting that they point out that there's, on average, 11 accidents a year, and these aren't referred to in the traffic impact study as accidents, they are crashes. And some involve personal property and a few injuries. But I think that's a real issue. Public safety is an issue. That gets me to the meat of what I want to talk about in the traffic impact study. And if you've got that, you can go over to page 26 of 34. That's table 5. I heard your city planner talk about moving things from level C or better. And I also heard that, well, we have done all that. Well, no, you didn't. In fact, on page 26 of 34, there are 5 different intersections, side street stops, that after improvements, they get worse. 4 of those are significantly worse. I did talk to your city engineer about that, and he verified that I wasn't looking at something wrong.
Okay, Mr. Fryer, we're getting close to your 3 minutes there.
All
so
right.
Go ahead and wind it down, please.
So that's a major flaw in this. The alternative is to make the primary entrance at Hobnob and to direct traffic to go to the casino at 83. That's signage. The last thing, and I will try to make it brief, is with the Aegis letter. And if you look at the Aegis letter, it was written to you guys. That's regarding, it was written to the mayor, but the title for who it regards is you. And basically, the gist of that letter is to wait. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. David Ivey, you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commission. Appreciate the opportunity to address you. I'll try to use my 3 minutes very efficiently. So I'll get right to it. One of the things I've not heard talked about at all, and maybe it has, Morgan, I don't know, but I purchased property out on Bradley Cove Road 16 years ago and started a business here. Been very successful. Russellville's been good to me. But I do have some concerns about the traffic issues, and there may be issues that can be addressed, but at this point I'm concerned about them. One of the things I have not heard anything said about is trucks. As you well know, the Flying J sits right there at the intersection. And what has occurred is that when the Flying J was built, there was no rear access or egress from the parking lot. It was not permitted in the original site plan for the Flying J. There was a reason for that. The reason is the roads and the infrastructure in that area were not built to support those trucks. 5, 6 years ago, I'm not sure exactly how long, there was a egress, built, a cut and gutter cut made back on Interstate Drive. And I, a year or so ago, I guess now, asked to see if somebody in the city could pull the permit for that. To my knowledge, nobody in the city was able to find anything that permitted that egress. So that was done without approval. It creates a real serious problem. if you're familiar with that area out there, especially in the evenings, well, I sat over there this afternoon from 3:45 to 4 o'clock. And I've read the TIS, and I've been through the whole TIS, and I could waste a bunch of time talking about that right now. But the point is, in 15 minutes, there were 132 cars and 36 trucks that were right there in that area. In 15 minutes, multiply that by 4, what are you getting in an hour? That's not peak time. That's 3:45 to 4 o'clock. Peak time is 4:30 to 5:30, at least according to the TIS. So we have a huge volume there. I mean, and Mr. Fryer, I believe, mentioned there's a lot of growth still going on Crow Mountain, Bradley Cove. All that area is still developing, and that traffic's going to increase. But here's the real problem, because I've been a victim of it. There have been numerous times coming down Bradley Cove Road where the road cinches down to one lane in front of Crafton Toll and the entrance to the truck section of the truck stop, and a truck is trying to turn left out of interstate to go back towards the interstate, and sometimes they get the right front wheel off the road. I've been there in a situation where it took an hour and 15 minutes because they had to call a tow truck out to pull the truck off the road, and traffic was backing up towards my place. I own a business right down Bradley Cove Road there, Ivy's Cove. I had motorhomes that couldn't get to me because the road was blocked for an hour and a half. There are times when just to make that turn, a truck coming down Bradley Cove Road has to sit back probably 70, 80 feet because this truck has to have the width to make that turn. The point I'm making here is I'm real concerned about it. This is a very dangerous scenario. We've been very fortunate with nobody getting hurt, but the traffic load there is increasing, so I'm hoping that maybe we can just look at that, and I know Morgan had indicated that there would be further discussions with the state and whatnot. I've even tried to find out, I don't know exactly where the state responsibility ends and the city begins, but I'm just asking you, before you approve this, to make that consideration, because it is very important that those issues be addressed. And if I have any time left, also, please consider the fact there's a light at Parkway and Bradley Cove. The TIS says there needs to be a light on the eastbound lane, I believe. One of the two ramps. The TIS says that there needs to be another light right now, and it says that they anticipate that in a very short term there needs to be a third light in that area. Okay. You're talking about massive congestion, we're going to have problems. I promise you, just as sure as I'm standing here, Scout Sauter.
Thank you,
I know
David.
my time's up.
Appreciate
Thank you very much.
You want to reply to that, Morgan? I'm sure you got a reply to that.
Well, and he brought, all those are good points about the traffic, and we did look at it, and we looked at the percentage of truck traffic. The proposed improvements are to mitigate the impacts, and that's what we propose. That's what the city and the state looked at as far as our proposed improvements. As far as the truck traffic, one of the reasons we aligned the driveway with David, what's the interstate? Completely lost the name. With Interstate Drive was to allow for truck traffic and possible signalization of that intersection if necessary. I even modeled a roundabout at that location, but it was going to encroach onto some private property that the applicant just isn't able to acquire private property. If the city or the state, and in that portion, to answer Mr. Ivy's other question, that portion is city. The state ends basically at the end of the curb and gutter of the improved section, and then it transitions to city. So it is a little bit of a complicated area as far as who's responsible for what. That's why we're coordinating with multiple agencies. But that portion that is in the city, we can add a signal if needed. It's not warranted because the proposed improvements will allow basically free flow traffic and a stacking lane if it's not free flow for the left turn in. There's also on the exit a widening proposed from the end of the state improvements all the way to the driveway that will add another lane to let exiting traffic be free flowing, because that additional lane will be protected by an island and not impact the through traffic coming off of Bradley Cove. But we did all good points were brought up, and we did consider and address those in the traffic impact study. I think Mr. Castleberry had a couple of comments he wanted to address.
State your name for the record, sir.
Casey Castleberry, attorney on behalf of Gulfside Casino Partnership. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'll be brief. Just wanted to respond very quickly to some of the comments that were made regarding legal matters. There are a few cases pending, including one before the Arkansas Supreme Court. That case will be fully briefed next week, and the Supreme Court will come back into session in September. However, we don't have any knowledge of when the Supreme Court might rule on that case. Although we all hope to get a quick ruling, there's no way to know that. The parties did request an oral argument in that case, but the court denied it, so the court's going to rule just on the papers. That could be middle of September. That could be next October. We don't know when the Supreme Court will rule, so respectfully, don't believe that is a consideration for this commission to take into account at this point. There was also mention of the Attorney General's letter, and I addressed this last time, so I won't belabor the point, but even in that letter, the Attorney General recognized that Gulfside has a license.
Can I back you up just real quick? You said,
yes.
you just made a comment there
Yes, sir.
that's something this commission shouldn't consider. Can you explain on that? Can you elaborate on that part real quick, if you would?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I believe that the considerations before this commission at this point are whether our proposed site plan complies with the applicable ordinances that apply to large-scale developments pursuant to your regulations and laws and ordinances in the city. In the legal world, if you want to prevent a party from going forward and acting based upon the rights that that party has, then you have the ability to go to the court and ask the court to issue an injunction or issue a restraining order to prevent that party from going forward. There's been no such injunction or restraining order entered in any of the pending cases, so there's no legal impediment to this commission considering this matter at this time, if that's responsive to your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Real quickly on the Attorney General's letter, as I mentioned last time I was before the commission, that letter acknowledges that that Gulfside has a license, and there was also email correspondence that I believe I discussed last time as well between the city planner and the Racing Commission, where the Racing Commission acknowledged that Gulfside has a license and Gulfside is entitled to construct a casino based upon that license. And so respectfully, again, I don't believe that is one of the factors for this commission to consider at this time, and would defer to Mr. Morgan with respect to our compliance with the applicable ordinances and laws. But I'm happy to answer any questions if any of the commissioners would like to discuss any of those matters further.
Commissioners? I know you have questions, gentlemen. Let's hear them.
What's the information on the annex having another separate license? Where do we stand on that?
That's a good question. So our license does not say specifically whether we can operate a temporary facility. It just says we can operate a casino. And the Racing Commission has taken the position that if we want to operate a temporary facility, then we have to come back before them and ask for their permission. And we've agreed to that. And I think, again, this is a really good question. I should have addressed it in my opening remarks. But in the recommendations that were proposed by staff, in section 1E, it says that if Gulfside wants to operate a temporary facility, we've got to get a temporary license from the Racing Commission and bring it to you, or we can remove the temporary facility from our plan and go forward with it without it. So we on behalf of Gulfside, I submitted a letter shortly after we received and reviewed those recommendations and stipulated that we will comply with all of the recommendations that were made by staff. So we will not go forward with the temporary facility unless we get approval from the Racing Commission and provide that to y'all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Turn your mic on. Turn your mic on there. Step speaking to.
Say you build this annex,
Yes, sir.
okay? What happens to it once your main facility is built?
Well, the annex is designed to be multi-purpose, so we're hopeful, if we do go that route, build the annex, operate a temporary facility pursuant to some additional authority given to us, that there will be a use either as a second gaming floor in the future or perhaps as some convention space. So it's not going to be, it's going to be integrated into the final project and will be available for other uses than just a temporary utilization.
Well, I was under the impression that you was gonna use it for storage, that's what I was told, if
Oh.
you built it. So that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, understood.
Any other questions? Anybody, this is a public meeting, so if anybody, Cliff, go ahead. Oh, okay, all right. Mr. Casper, you have anything else?
I don't, unless there are any further questions.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
You bet. Go ahead. State your name if you would, Mr. Gooden.
For the record, my name is Cliff Gooden. I'm a citizen of Pope County. This is a very difficult issue that we're facing. I want to, Mr. Barrett, I have a great lot of respect for him. We've worked on projects before. I don't question his integrity, his ability. I mean, he'll do what best he can. He did tell me after our last meeting that they were a long way from getting a building permit, and I agree with that. I visited with Miss Sarah. I told her that I thought that she did an excellent job of presenting the committee's review. There's lots of stuff that hadn't been done yet, and she listed the stuff that needed to be done. Things that I noticed, which might not be a big issue one way or the other, I believe their site plan had like 42 acres. Their license has 120. You know, what happens to the rest of it? We got the attorney raised several issues why we wouldn't be considering this tonight. That's the court issues. Also, whether or not they're going to do a temporary casino. In my lifetime, I've gone before groups with projects that I was trying to sell, and would go to them, and they say, yeah, you know, I think that project's got merit, but you got more work to do. That's where these people are. They got more work to do. They need to be meeting some of these requirements that are listed, and then come back and ask for an approval, not ask for approval and then go out and do it. You know, I mean, that's just simple business. They're not there. They're not there. You know, the public image that they're quoting is not where they are. The whole situation's not where they are. They're a long way from getting a casino started. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Just one second. Go ahead, Morgan.
Just to respond to Mr. Gooden, and I have utmost respect for him, and he's a neighbor, so I don't want to make him mad either. The planning process, this is where we're at in the planning process, is to seek large-scale development approval, and then complete all the detailed plans. That's just a process for large-scale developments. We don't come in and spend a bunch of money doing a bunch of detailed plans and then come to the city and submit it and have a bunch of changes and redo everything. This is a long planning process. We don't want to start detailed building plans until we have y'all's approval. And again, any comments from the city, we've tried incorporating into the site plan so we can design it according to the city's desires. So that's where we're at, and that's why all these things aren't done yet, but that's just part of the process. They will be done. The staff has done a real good job of listing what they want done, and that was the process. If we would have had a complete set of plans and brought in here, and then the staff reviewed it and said this and this and this and this and this, well, it would have been wasted, and it's just not done like that. Y'all have seen a lot of developments that everything's not in place as far as a large-scale development. You have a site plan. That's the first step in the engineering process, is develop a site plan and then do the detailed drawings, as well as the additional permitting. All the permitting takes place after detailed plans. So, I mean, that's where we're at. Y'all will see stuff tonight. Y'all see stuff in the future that'll come to you as a large-scale development that doesn't have all the permitting in place, because they have to nail this down to do the detailed plans, to do the additional permitting.
Morgan, it's Don. On your traffic study, how did you do the traffic flow to get your traffic study out there?
We did actual traffic counts
Counts.
of the existing traffic. We put up cameras that would both do the counts and classification of the vehicles.
So you tracked all the vehicles coming in and leaving that area
Yep.
to date?
Yep, and
And
compared
then
it.
added your projected traffic?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and we compared the counts to the highway department counts that they had previously done, and they were pretty consistent. But we wanted to verify the traffic volumes with current counts, and we did counts. I don't know if y'all saw the cameras, but they were all over that area when we were performing those.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, ma'am. If you would state your name for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Janet Fryer, and I live off Bradley Clove Road, and there is one set of vehicles that have not been discussed that is a safety issue. I looked, and I almost memorized the traffic study. I'm sorry, am
That's
I?
okay. Just step up closer to the mic if you would.
I'm too close? Okay.
You're good.
We're talking about, how about ambulances and fire trucks and emergency vehicles, police cars, sheriffs? We now have down that road arbors, which is an assisted living, which would probably require a lot more ambulances down that road. In 2019 on Walleye Drive, there was a house that began to burn. It was the Russellville fire department that put it out. I looked and looked. I've spent hours poring over the traffic study. There's just no way to get all that traffic through that area and left turners. I'm not an engineer, Mr. Barrett, I know. But we went out and walked it even. And there's not enough left turn lanes. The interstate, after you leave the interstate, there's still a one-lane road, which is until it has the passing lane. I don't think that we can have that casino entrance off of exit 84. And I realize you all have things that you're looking at, that boxes have been checked. But this is a box that you might not have thought about, is the people who live down there have need for emergency services at times. And I don't think this is going to work for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fry. Okay. Sarah, you want to add anything to anything that's been said, or come back with answer any questions, or?
Yes. First, I will address, Ms. Keener had asked when the zoning had been established. I want to correct, I had the wrong ordinance number. It's actually ordinance 2346 that did the zoning, and that was on February 20th, 2020, and that was passed with an emergency clause to zone that area. And then ordinance 2343 was passed December 19th, 2019, that added the casino as a permitted use in the C5 zone. So to address that issue, and then my understanding with ambulances and fire trucks, during construction, they would be communicating if there's any road closures or anything, and Richard Sedian is here, maybe could address that a little bit better for you. since he is definitely more familiar than I am with fire response. But I know that their response times anywhere in the city is typically pretty good from what I have heard. But I believe that any improvements that we're doing out there as a result of this will only improve traffic, with the exception of the interstate if they don't maintain that level of service B, which is currently at it as it stands. Anytime you have any development, you're going to potentially have a decrease in a level of service. We are not allowing it to decrease to a level D, which is what is stated in the traffic impact study. We are expecting them to maintain at least a level C. And so they would have to do specific requirements as identified in the traffic impact study and in coordination with the city and RDOT to get those approvals to maintain those level of service. One thing, I'd had a conversation earlier today with this review. When you're looking at these, I am not aware of any projects that have had this big of an impact that had these many conditions at the planning stage. I do want to reiterate, this is the planning stage of things. This just gives them permission to move forward to the design phase. We're giving them permission. We're saying, yes, you have met these checkboxes, but now you have got to go and meet all the requirements of the Russellville Zoning Code, of the Land Subdivision Development Code, of the Stormwater Code, of water and sewer requirements for city core, building requirements for the building, because we're requiring them to annex. Then they have to meet the state building codes, and we'll have inspections, have building permits. So there's a lot of things that are going to be required that would be required of any building. But if I compare this to, say, Walmart Supercenter has about the same level of traffic, I'm not aware of any requirements where we came in after the fact and said, okay, you've got your certificate of occupancy, you're open, you're in operation, now we need you to do additional studies and potentially do additional construction and improvements to maintain level of service within our traffic system, or within our transportation system. We have definitely reviewed this project to make sure that we are taking care of the community as a whole, not just one little area, but overall, all the citizens. As I know, there are several citizens who don't even live in the city who are impacted by this. And we're doing what we can at this stage to ensure that requirements and improvements are made to take care of those. I did get a text from one of the commissioners just asking me to outline again that what we're here for and where we have authority. So this is, the site plan has been submitted. It meets all of those check boxes. And I know we've talked about just, like, we've just checked the list. Okay, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this, but we've gone above and beyond trying to review and have those conditions in place. But the review of the project is subject to all the requirements of the Land Subdivision and Development Code. And the Planning Commission has the authority to deny an application in the event that the application conflicts with any of the outlined provisions of the Land Subdivision Development Code, of the Russellville Zoning Code. It does not conflict with any of those provisions. And that's where it comes down to, they have met all the requirements. And it does say in the Land Subdivision Development Code, under large-scale development, if they've met the requirements, our job is to say, okay, it is in compliance and we need to move this forward. Are there any other questions?
I can't see who's speaking.
Ms. Sharon, you're
I'm
going to
sorry.
have to come up here and ask your question.
So your voice is soft, and which I can't hear you.
When you plan a building, and I may be wrong on this, someone correct me if I am. When you plan a building and you have an architect firm, a large firm, they know what is required. They're going to know what the city of Russellville's building codes are and so forth. So, to me, even though they have met at this stage, if this is going to be a temporary thing, and then they plan to, like Mr. Gooden said, use the remainder of the land, I don't understand why you don't have your large-scale program, your large-scale design already for everyone to look at. Why are we doing piecemeal? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Does it, y'all? I mean,
It does
The
conflict,
experience-
the planning commission is conflicted on a lot of things about this,
an
because
architect should
our
be
job
here.
description of what we
Yes.
are authorized to do and
Yes.
what we know is right
Right.
is sometimes, I mean, it's hard for us to say yes to something that is morally corrupt, in my
Yes.
opinion. But I mean, if you have something that you don't agree with personally,
That's right.
then it
If
is.
they're on the
Don't think
open-
that the planning commission is just, you know, saying yes or saying no. Our authority
Yes.
is to make sure that they take care of the plan, of everything planning wise.
Exactly, but
And
wouldn't you
we
like
just,
to?
we just have to pray that our city council members that we forward it on to, if we do, then that they take care of it. And, you know, we just,
And I
if there are
appreciate-
legal issues that need addressed, then those get addressed, but those aren't addressed by us.
And I
So,
appreciate that stance. But at the same time, if y'all are if you really want to build here, even though you have a temporary license, I will call it, at this point, get everything in order. Get a large architect firm that can address all this, then bring it to the planning commission, and then take it before the city council. Y'all are piecemealing something, which people, most of us don't even want, as you saw with your little opening ceremony thing. And it's because.
Ms. Fryer, if you would address the commission, please, not individuals in the room, please.
It's because of their background.
I know that.
And y'all have heard it from more than, I don't know, probably the biggest majority of the people in this
We do
community.
appreciate and we do sympathize with your
But
feelings here, but
if I was on this commission, I would want a complete set of plans done by an architect from beginning of design to the end of design. And then there's no question of what might come down the pike later. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Ms. Keener. We
Thank
appreciate
for-
you.
Thank you for this.
I'm going to jump in before you. Just a reminder, this is a large-scale development. Large-scale development is, decision authority is here at the Planning Commission. It does not go onto City Council. And so you guys are the
I was
deciding
meaning that as
factor on this.
In general, I wasn't meaning
Yes,
this
sir.
particular, but thank you, Sarah, for once again. Guys, the planning commission's well aware of what their authority is. And unfortunately, I mean, there's times where, you know, we may not, you know, personally agree with something that is being discussed, but it's, but I do appreciate Sarah, you know, presenting the facts that, you know, of reminding folks that, you know, we don't want folks upset with us because, I mean, a lot of folks think that there's a lot more authority sitting up here that there is, that there's not. I mean, we have a job to do and we have to do it, but there's other areas that take care of other things. So, and unfortunately, we are not, you know, we have a single responsibility, and whether we agree with it or not, I mean, that's, you know, it's out of our hands sometimes. Mr. Casper, you want to go ahead and?
Extremely briefly, for the record, I just want to say that Gulfside could not be more pleased with the engineering firm that we have based right here out of Russellville, Arkansas. We don't think we need any other firm than the one we have.
Morgan is the best. Everybody knows that. So, all right. Anybody else have any comment? Mr. Fryer? Yeah, just let's keep it under 3 minutes, though. Okay.
I must have not been very clear, but if you'll look on that table 5, page 26 of 34, you'll find, look on the far right, that is what the build, after the improvements are done, that's what the traffic service level is. That's why I went to your city engineer and asked him if I was reading this right. You can look down the list and you see things going from a B to an F. You can see things going from a B to a D. See things going from a B to a C, which isn't too bad. C to E. E's about as bad as it gets. And the last one's a B to an E. What that's telling you is the mitigation that was planned isn't going to work. It's going to get more congested. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, Mr. Fryer. All right. Is there anybody else that has any comments, questions for either Mr. Castleberry, Sarah, Morgan Barrett?
I do.
Harley?
Sarah, did you just not say in an earlier statement that there's some requirement that the traffic stay at level C?
Yes, ma'am, and that is,
Is that printed on this sheet? Am I missing it somewhere, please?
it is,
Oh, okay.
it is in the staff report. I don't know which, paragraph it is in on yours because my presentation is a little bit different, but it does state that in review of the traffic impact study, improvements will be required to be designed and approved by the city and RDOT as needed for improvements at both entrances, including off-site improvements for each entrance located at Hobnob Road, Bradley Cove Road, as well as the improvements to maintain a level of service rating of a C or better for both off-ramps from I-40 adjoining Highway 331 Bradley Cove Road.
Okay, I found it on page 2. I was just looking for it in the recommendation in your staff report, in those numbers there, so it was just further down.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for our counsel, Trey.
Okay, go right ahead.
Trey, if we have an applicant that adheres to all of our requirements for approval, and what we are trying, the word "shall" is in that. If they, whoever that is, adheres to all of our conditions, the city recommends it for approval, what is our obligation as a body to go against that?
If I understand your question right, if you're saying if it meets the land subdivision development regulations, did I hear you correctly? Then
Right, if all of the boxes have been checked, as it were, if all those have been checked, and based on what I've read, if all of those are checked, then it says that the commission shall approve, is the word and that's pretty strong. So my question is if all of those conditions have been met, what do we have as a body to not approve that legally?
in my opinion, based on my understanding of the law, if all the boxes have been checked, then at that point, there's no discretion with this body as to arbitrarily put new conditions on. And I based that on a case called Richardson versus the City of Little Rock Planning Commission. And that was an applicant that went to the Little Rock Planning Commission, and he met all the requirements of their subdivision regulation, but that planning commission said, well, it's going to be marginal development, and we don't like your cul-de-sac. It's just, it meets our criteria, but we just don't like it. The Supreme Court found that they could not add those additional things, that there was no discretion because they had met the requirements of the Little Rock Land Subdivision Development Code. And I think the same thing would apply here. We have the same language as shall. It only says about, if you go past that language, it only talks about disapproval, if I remember correctly, if there is something that's not checked in the box, so to speak. And so that's your only, in my opinion, if you find something that's not complete on the application, that they failed to do something, then that's the only way I could see this council or this planning commission reject it.
Trey, I have
Yes.
I have a question there too. The pending lawsuits, and that's I think that's, something that's kind of, concerning, I guess. Commissioner Duffield's right as far as, as far as the authority or whatever. I mean, we are, if the boxes are all checked, but should that not have been, I mean, if there are pending lawsuits or whatever, I mean, that are going to be, and you guys have requested, I guess, for, for an answer to some of these within the next month or so, but wouldn't it be prudent of the city to kind of, does this have any bearing on that part of it? I mean, at all?
I think the
and if so,
lawsuits, in my opinion, I think the lawsuits have no bearing as to this body as to the application for you. That's simply, they're the ones at risk of doing, of making this thing. All we are looking at is an application that appears to be completed, or at least.
you don't see a potential building sitting out in the middle of the field with nobody in it, like a National Home Center? I mean, we don't have a risk of something like that. I mean, I'm sure that's been a lot of the concerns that have came to me, is that an empty building, I mean, if they do lose and we get a building started or whatever, I mean, it's.
I've looked through the Land Subdivision Requirement Code, and there's nothing that talks about.
Well, as long as we got clarification on that, I think, I mean, that's all we needed. I mean, as long as we're not checking a box that we shouldn't have, because, I mean, we're just trying to be prudent. I mean, we're, there are, limits on what the planning commission can do, obviously, but, there are things out there, though, that make you wonder and make sure that people that, have sent you this stuff, have done their due diligence. I mean, that's.
I understand. I see nothing in the large-scale development that talks about the potential of the viability of what's being proposed or the potential litigation for each applicant that comes before them. So I think it just has no bearing on what's before you and what this large-scale development, how you're supposed to administer it. And you're supposed to administer it evenly based upon the checklist before you.
Okay. Thank you.
So Trey, to be clear, when you cited the case, the Planning Commission in Little Rock, all of their boxes were checked by the applicant, and the Planning Commission went against that. That went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court found in favor of the applicant?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Trey Smith, our city attorney. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Yes. I'm sorry, Dave. Yeah. We're gonna wrap it up after you guys. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do something.
Okay, it would appear to me, since we don't know whether their plans are to build a casino or build a casino and an annex, that they would tell us what their plans are. If they're not going to build the annex, they would take it out of the large-scale development. If they are going to build the annex, they would go back to the Racing Commission and get a license to do that. And then at that point, at least, the large-scale development could be approved. This large-scale development, you don't know what their development plan is. And I would think that would be prudent for them to make a decision about what they wanted to build. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. I don't disagree with the process. I understand how it works, trust me. And that if the boxes are checked, as Mr. Duffield said, then that's the responsibility of the group. My only comment would be, if all the boxes are checked, why are there still questions? If we had all the traffic answers and you could check that box and you didn't have any questions, I can understand that. But if there's still questions as to whether those numbers are right or whether it's going to work, how can you check a box that you have questions for? Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, you want to respond to any of that, or you have anything else to add? Or I know you're just dying to say something.
No, I'm actually not, but I will respond in that there's just a checklist of items that they have to submit, and I wanted to just speak on the fact that there are things that are advantageous for us to have. Like we already have the traffic impact study, but that is not one of the check boxes that they had to check off at this time. This is just granting them the development rights to move forward with the project. They would still have to do a traffic impact study, and typically they don't expend those funds to get to this point. They just provide us a site plan, and then we work through the code requirements, and we get the design and the engineering for water, sewer, stormwater. We get the traffic impact study and make sure that the requirements for our transportation system are met as part of the design phase of a project. So we have extra information on this application that normally we wouldn't have at this phase. And so, although there are unanswered questions regarding how the transportation system is going to be fixed, or the construction proposal, how those answers are going to be solved as a result of the traffic impact study, those are not questions that are typically answered as part of the large-scale development process. They are part of the design process. Again, we're just granting this applicant the approvals necessary to move forward with their project, to get into that design phase of a project. And so that's all I have at this point. Are there any other questions?
I will make a request that we not hear the word check boxes again for the rest of the night, if that's all.
I'll do my best.
I have a question. There was an inference by someone speaking that the city of Russellville would be expending funds. The city of Russellville is not expending funds. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted that on the
Yes,
record,
ma'am.
that that was not true.
That is correct. All expenses would be paid by the developer. I'm sorry, I did not hear the question entirely. The developer paid for the traffic study. The city has not expended any funds at this point.
Sarah, is there anything that you can elaborate on as far as those, yeah, since you're already there, I mean, you make an easy target here. There's been a lot of questions that have came to the commissioners. I'm sure everybody that's sitting up here has gotten, I mean, I know we've all, tried to answer as many questions today or in the last, couple weeks as we can. But the question has came up several times about the lawsuits that are, pending, and we've heard all the checkbox talk. I mean, we want to do the right thing up here, but I want folks to have peace of mind when they leave here, to not knowing that there's not been, something that's been, that the city has not been, had the wool pulled over their eyes, or that there is anything going on that's not on the up and up. I mean, what actions have the city taken as far as considering these three lawsuits, the lawsuits that are pending? I mean, and I know there's not a lot here that but just so everybody has a little bit of peace of mind, what has the city done in reference to those lawsuits to make sure that we're doing the right thing?
That's a great question. I know that we have emailed the Racing Commission to confirm the license and to confirm that they actually have the license. We have mapped the legal description to confirm that the property that they're proposing this development on is the property included within the license. Specifically regarding the lawsuits, we're just paying attention to what is happening, but that has no bearing on a large-scale development application. There's nothing in our rules or regulations that require any county, any state, any federal licenses or anything to already be issued and in place at this point of an application for a large-scale development. I believe we may have something when it gets towards the business license issuance, where they can't operate the business until they have those licenses in place. However, for this planning phase, there's nothing in code, in city law, that says we have to have those approvals, those licenses issued in place prior to approval on a large-scale development.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Commissioners, do you have any questions for anybody in the room, I guess? Mr. Castleberry, Sarah, Morgan, I think the Richard's back here hiding in the back. So Anybody have any questions, comments? I'm going to ask you, what's your pleasure? Commissioners?
I'm going to, based on Trey's example of the lawsuit in Little Rock, and based on the fact that all of the, I'll say it again, all the boxes have been checked for this large-scale development and all the conditions in the recommendation from staff, if all of the conditions are met and the boxes are checked, then I recommend approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Mr. Cody, second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this request for large-scale development. All those in favor, acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay. Mr. Cawthorn, if you would do us a roll call, please.
Jackamore?
Yes.
Cawthorn? Yes. Monfee? Yes. Hatley? Yes. Duffield?
Yes.
Choate? Yes. Smith?
No.
Black?
Yes.
7-1, okay. We have a 7-1. The motion does carry. Moving on to the next item. Special use permit to allow auto service station at C2 zone. Commissioners, guys, we're going to move on to the next order of business here, please. We have a special use permit to allow auto service station on C2 zone located at 109 Weir Road, submitted by Velasquez Engineering on behalf of the McElwain Revocable Trust. Sarah, you got a staff report on that?
Yes, and I'll make this a lot quicker than the last one, I promise. This is an application being brought to the Planning Commission for a discount tire facility at 109 Weir Road. That is just north of the intersection of Main Street with Weir Road. And as you know, this area is highly commercial. It's a highway commercial zone across from our Walmart Supercenter. And I really don't want to go into a lot of details. They have met all the check boxes.
I know. I know.
You never should have said that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help it.
I walked right into that one, guys. I'm sorry. So, thanks, Luke. Appreciate you, buddy.
They have met with staff, asked all the questions to make sure that they were going through this process. The facade of the proposed structure will be in visual harmony. There's no discernible benefit by asking them to do anything else. They will be tearing down the existing facilities and building a brand-new facility. They've also listened to staff comments about the southern driveway that is closest to, I believe that's PDQ there, at the intersection of Weir and Main, and making that southern driveway a right turn in, right turn out only. All the other items have been met. The parking regulations have been met. They know that they'll have to apply for a sign permit separately from a building permit. So with that, staff recommends forwarding this application to City Council for approval of the special use permit as a result of the findings that the applicant demonstrates compliance with the regulations within Article 2.10 of the Russellville Zoning Code. The proposed use is in line with other uses within the district. The current traffic routes are constructed in such a way to handle the traffic from the business with the condition of the southern driveway being right in, right out, and public facilities already service this location. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioners?
Glenn, I do have one question for you. We do feel like the change in the ingress egress will be sufficient to handle traffic in that area?
Yes, sir. We had communication with the applicant, and it was built right in, right out with the appropriate.
Yes, it did.
Well, I have a question then. Coming out of Walmart, do we need to eliminate the left going south? Because that doesn't make any sense if you're going in right, out right. you still have people turning left.
Historically, the most traffic congestion area is crossing traffic, so at that location, because it's closer to the southern, it's closer to Main Street with signalized intersection backing up traffic, that is the location that we're looking at as a southern driveway. I may have misunderstood your question. Apologize.
Well, I mean, I'm a business owner on Weir Road already, and I get backed up 3 or 4 times a week, as Richard could probably confirm, with traffic coming out of Walmart pulling left.
Okay.
If you're going to right turn in and right turn out, you still have left coming out of Walmart to make that traffic even worse.
This application has no bearing on Walmart's driveway. We're not going to have Walmart change their configuration for development on private property.
Okay. Are there any other questions for anybody? All right, Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
This is Duffield, move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Duffield made the motion, and Mr. Monfey is seconding that. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. All right. Next item, special use permit to allow commercial amusement business in the C2 M1 zone located at property along Dow Road, just south of Lock and Dam Road, submitted by Alan Folsom. Sarah, you got a staff report?
Yes, sir. So this application is being brought to the Planning Commission to request a special use permit to allow construction of a commercial sand volleyball court along Dow Road. It will be approximately 800 feet south of the intersection of Dow Road and Lock and Dam Road. We have met with the applicant, gone over the requirements for the complex, talked about commercial building design. We've talked about the fact that this is permitted by special use and that special or conditions may be placed on the property. They are looking to provide ADA spaces for parking. The one of the conditions that we'll be placing or asking you to place is that there are currently proposed just a metal building, and we're asking them to come into compliance with commercial building design. We do believe that that is something that we can work through with the applicant through the building permit application process, and not trying to slow this application down, as I might be a little excited about a sand volleyball court. But there are others thinking that this is going to be a good fit for that area, even though south of there you do have industrial property. This is in that entrance area towards the soccer complex and Lock and Dam Park down there, and so it does seem to be in visual harmony with the other areas of that. So as a result, staff recommends forwarding this application to City Council for approval of the special use permit with the following conditions. They do need to replat the property to contain a parcel less than 5 acres. Otherwise, they will have to apply for a large-scale development, as they own approximately 50 acres. They will need to provide 72 parking spaces, 3 of those being ADA compliant. Revise the elevations to show compliance with Article 3.20, which is commercial building design, and then obtain a floodplain development permit and provide both a pre and a post elevation certificate with the building permit and certificate of occupancy. As a result of the findings, that the conditions listed in application the conditions listed above will make the application in compliance with the regulations within Article 2.10 of the Russellville Zoning Code, and the proposed construction is located within the special flood hazard area. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Sarah. Commissioners?
I'd make a motion to approve as recommended by staff.
Okay, Commissioner Chokes made a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, Commissioner Jackmore, second. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, next item, large-scale development located at 2401 South Arkansas Avenue, submitted by Barrett and Associates on behalf of West Frazier. Sarah, you got one for that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this is a large-scale development application as a result of the property, the size of the property, any new buildings, any new development on that property will require large-scale development. And they are requesting construction of a new kiln within the existing property boundaries of West Frazier. As you are probably all familiar with West Frazier, they are an existing business on South Arkansas. The property is zoned M1, and they are proposing to build a new kiln building. I drove by the property myself to determine if I would be able to see the new kiln from the right-of-way, and I could not. I might see a little edge of it. However, it's far enough back that I didn't believe that we needed to do any special conditions or requirements for that new kiln. They have met, all of the check boxes are checked. The check boxes.
The check boxes? Okay.
So it is staff's recommendation to approve the large-scale development to allow construction of the new kiln at West Frazier with the following conditions. Fire department will require fire protection and will require relocation of above-ground flammable storage tank. As a result of the findings that the applicant demonstrates compliance with the regulations in Article 2.10 of the Russellville Zoning Code, and the applicant demonstrates compliance with the regulations within Section 7 of the Land Subdivision and Development Code. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Sarah. So, anybody have any questions at all on that? What's your pleasure, gentlemen, ladies?
Mr. Don, I make a motion to approve it presented.
Okay, second. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this request. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. All right, we have a zone text amendment to allow an update to the table of permitted uses, Russell Zoning Code. This is going to be all you, Sarah, so take it away.
As you are all aware, we had an application that came before the Planning Commission regarding a rezone on North Phoenix Avenue. After discussion with the Corps of Engineers, discussion with the City Council, knowing that we were not going to be able to approve a rezoning request, came up with a solution by updating the table of permitted uses. And so that is what this application is. It's to update the table of permitted uses for warehousing, inside storage storage only,
Easy for you to say.
for existing buildings as a special permitted use within the CNS zone. And so this is just going to update the table of permitted uses, allowing that use, warehousing, inside storage only, for an existing building. This is the only existing building within that CNS zone. And so it's kind of particular to the property, but it does allow, if we update the table of permitted uses, it does allow a building that is in existence to be utilized and not fall into a dilapidated state. So staff does recommend forwarding the updates to the Russellville Zoning Code for Article 13, Table of Permitted Uses, to City Council for approval as a result of the findings that the proposal aligns with Reimagine Russellville 2040 Comprehensive Plan, allows reasonable growth to occur within the city, and supports local businesses.
Does this allow them to come back and try to get that done again?
This allows them to come back and apply for a special use permit, which they have already submitted to be heard next month after City Council approves this table of updates the table of permitted uses. If you move it forward, to the city council. They will be proposing their sign as part of that special use permit because the CNS zone does not permit any signage, and so it has to be permitted as part of the special use permit under special conditions. But yes, it does allow them to move forward, and it does support local businesses.
So we don't have to rezone, it won't require rezoning?
No, sir, it won't
Okay.
require rezoning that property. It's going to allow it to retain that CNS conservation zone, but it is going to allow that building to be utilized by that business. Yes, sir.
That's good. Yeah, I like that. That's awesome.
As they have proposed. Well, the rezoning was denied. It was also denied by the city council. And so this solution allows them to move forward. Yes, sir.
Sarah, do we see any other derogatory implications by changing the table of permitted uses for this one kind of location at this point?
No, sir. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers originally permitted this building to be built in the conservation zone for warehousing, inside storage. That's what it was built for. That's what the Corps of Engineers permitted it to be. And so they are in support of something that allows us to retain that inside storage, warehousing inside storage functionality of that building. And so I don't see any negative effects by changing this table of permitted uses.
And this is the only building that we've really got inside of the
Yes, sir.
conservation zone? Okay. Based upon that, I would make a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
We have a motion and a second to approve the update. All those in favor acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Here. Yeah, okay. Go do a roll call, if you would, Mr. Cawthorn.
Jackamore,
Yes.
Cothran, yes. Monfee, Hatley, Duffield, Choate, Smith, Black.
7-1? Okay, it's 7-1. It does pass. And with that, we are adjourned.